Hey everybody, Dr. Chad Woolner here with my good friend Dr. Andrew Wells, and on today's episode of the Laser Light Show, we have with us our good friend and special guest, Dr. Dan Murphy. We're so excited to have him back with us, so let's get to it. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I used to love going to laser light shows at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. They would put on these amazing light shows with incredible designs synced up to some of my favorite music. From the Beatles to Pink Floyd to Jimi Hendrix and Metallica, they were awesome. Little did I know then that lasers would have such a profound effect in my life decades later. As a chiropractic physician, I have seen firsthand just how powerful laser therapy is at helping patients struggling with a wide range of health problems. As the leader in laser therapy, Erchonia has pioneered the field in obtaining 20 of the 23 total FDA clearances for therapeutic application of lasers. On this podcast, we'll explore the science and technology and physiology behind what makes these tools so powerful. Join me as we explore low-level laser therapy. I'm Dr. Chad Woolner, along with my good friend Dr. Andrew Wells, and welcome to the Laser Light Show. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. We're super excited to have Dr. Dan Murphy with us. Dr. Dan Murphy, welcome to the show again. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, and thanks for having me on again, guys.
Awesome. What's new in your world? How have things been? I know you just had a seminar with Dr. Kristen Heischetter. Where was that at?
Kristen and we worked in Birmingham, Alabama.
All right. Down in the South, nice and hot during the summer.
Yeah, has she been on your show?
She has, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she did a really, really good job. That was the first time that I've worked with her. I've known her for a long time, like maybe a decade or something like that. And she's very smart. She's very confident. And just, kind of so I got to listen to her, not totally because we had flight, I had a flight thing. And, but what I got to listen to was really, really good. She's really hands-on. She's really smart. And so that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, she's great. We've known her for a while now, and yeah, very, very sharp. She's got a really pretty diverse background, so it's been fun chatting with her, and so no doubt that was an awesome seminar.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good.
I can say that was kind of like a bucket list thing for her. You've been a big influence on her, so she was really excited and also really nervous to lecture with you. And I think, I think that was a weekend that she won't forget.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm very non-judgmental. She really came up to the plate. She did a really, really good job. She's just the next generation. I mean, someone's got to keep moving it forward. And I think that she's as good or better than anyone that I've seen out there. So I think the future holds that we will all be seeing a lot more of Kristen, I think.
That's awesome. I think that's kind of a really good segue into some thoughts that I had that I wanted to ask you about. When we talk about low-level laser therapy, at this stage of the game, I think the preeminent mechanism of action that most everybody is in agreement with is, the fact that specific wavelengths of light stimulate the mitochondria. That helps to output, more efficiency in terms of ATP synthesis and production. But I wanted to explore and maybe pick your brain as to what you think the future holds in terms of alternative mechanisms of action that seem to be also at play that studies are starting to kind of reveal. We've been hearing a little bit more about this topic of photobiomics and low-level laser therapy stimulating the microbiome and the influence of that. We're hearing some in terms of talks of light stimulating microtubules and maybe this kind of idea of, light acting upon the body in such a way that it's almost like a fiber optic network and things like that. What are your thoughts in terms of some of these alternative theories? Where do you think things are going? What does the future hold, in your opinion?
I think those things that you just shared have been around for a very long time. I remember 20 years ago hearing Jeff Spencer talk about all of that, and I thought it was pretty fascinating. Of course, when you talk about the microbiome, what immediately comes to mind is the realization that a human is more microbial than human. When you look at how many cells are human cells with human DNA and how many cells are microbial with microbial DNA, they win. I mean, the microbes win. And when you use lasers on any cell, I mean, what is a microbe? What is a bacteria? If you read evolutionary biology, which I'm a fan of, I think that that's synonymous with chiropractic innate intelligence. When you read evolutionary biology, it is routinely claimed that there is a symbiotic relationship between a human and a microbe that is now, we call it the mitochondria, and that there's really, in terms of genetics, no difference between a mitochondria and a bacteria. So being able to influence the microbiome, that's not surprising at all. I mean, and it's probably a really important thing. I think that where it gets to be increasingly fun, though, is the realization that there are now brand new studies that I've been shown in my classes that are top tier journals, credible studies that are claiming that there are free floating mitochondria in our bloodstream, that they're actually the same genetics, the same nucleotide based sequences, the same expression of proteins as our mitochondrial DNA. So they look at them as a free floating microbe, but a free floating mitochondria. And you can influence those with lasers, just like you're talking about the whole thing on the electron transport chain, and your ability to influence it with different waveforms. You should know that if there's anything I see weird in that regard, there are increasing studies that are claiming that lasers are probably working at a quantum biological level, which is really heavy duty stuff. But what they have the ability to do is to breed animals that don't have cytochrome C oxidase, let's say. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't have that protein. They don't have that ability. And yet they can put lasers on them and notice incredible changes in the production of adenosine triphosphate. So they go, how do you explain that? Well, the relevance of all of that, just kind of wrapping it all around, is that the current explanations are good, they're accurate, but they are without a doubt incomplete. As
Sure.
time goes forward, you're going to get more and more of these quantum biological explanations. And so just sort of going that direction is a pretty important direction. The different waveforms, but what I think is even funner though is that in chiropractic, there's this thing called the tensegrenous matrix, and that is an interconnection of all of the tissues of our body through a matrix. And it's a big deal. I mean, there's great studies and books on it. I remember the one that influenced me was there's one out of the Annals of Medicine by a pediatrician out of Harvard named Donald Enberg, and it's an article titled "Mechanotransduction and Mechanobiology." And essentially, what it says is that there is a matrix that is separate from our genetics, that is a whole body communication network outside of the nervous system. And that I heard Jeff Spencer way back 20 years ago talking about a guy named Joey Jones out of UC Irvine and how you could influence the network with light almost anywhere. And he would go over studies on how they could register changes in brain physiology by sticking the laser on the toe. And it would happen so quickly that it was quicker than the nervous system could do it. And so their explanation is something through the tensegrenous matrix. I think that stuff is exceptionally fascinating and things that we'll see more and more of as time goes on. But the way we started this small talk today, you kind of said, what is new in my world? And I had something that was really relevant. And that is, I did my 50th high school reunion. And I'm thinking, okay, whoa. And in high school, I was kind of a nobody. I mean, I was on the football team, I ran track, but really no one knew my name. I think I got the Golden Splinter Award on the football team. I spent more time on the bench than any of the other players. Um, yeah, but we do the 50-year thing, and my high school is very exceptional. Like 99% go to college. It is a college prep school. And I did the 50-year reunion, and all of a sudden, me, who was a middle of a packer, ended up being, as far as I can tell, number one in both physical and mental abilities. And I attribute that in large part to that 22 years ago, we developed a laser brain protocol because you could start seeing studies that say, yeah, you can use the lasers to treat Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and traumatic brain injury and stroke, all true. But if you look at those articles critically, they say you can use them for cognitive enhancement. And that for cognitive enhancement, that's a really big deal. And that if you're looking at our country, our world, but look at our country, and the prophets of our country are saying our country is doomed because of one illness, and that is dementia. Dementia is swallowing our country. It's happening to more and more of our citizens at a younger and younger age, which means their brain is dying, but their body is still alive.
Mm.
So you have to take care of them. Studies that came out of Rand Review as much as, in 2015, so date that back 8 years ago, they start to figure out that once you are diagnosed with dementia and you need ongoing for the rest of a life care, it's 10 years. And the average care is 100 grand a year. Well, that's $1 million a person. They realize that by the time I hit 85, that there will be 15 million Americans officially diagnosed with just one form of dementia, and that's Alzheimer's. And they say you take 15 million, you multiply by 100 grand, that's $1.5 trillion. No society can sustain that. And so they keep looking at it saying, well, we need better drugs. And they got the new drugs that are just under 30 grand a year that they want you to take. No society can pay for that. It's impossible. It will break every healthcare system out there. And so they're looking at, when Rand Review did the thing, I wrote a letter to the editor and say, hey, if you guys are so misguided, I go, you do these numbers, and your conclusion is we're going to need a lot more money. I go, if we gave you all the money, it's not enough. The only solution is you have to figure out how to prevent it. And so it's multifactorial. But one of the things that I've been seeing in the studies for 20 years is that if you figure out how to do the laser protocols, and you never would do it with a high-powered laser because it's probably contraindicated, even dangerous. We use low-level laser therapy. We know exactly where to put it. We know exactly how long to put it. We know exactly what the blinks. For example, I just took a class also with Trevor Barry, and brilliant neuro Diplomate guy. He's probably been on as well. And both of us independently found studies that say if it's Alzheimer's, the blinks, the pulses have to be exactly 40 per second, which we can do on our lasers. We can dial in 40. We found another one that says if you do exactly 10 blinks per second, and that's so we can dial that one in. So we can dial in 4. So there's do the 4. And then Trevor says you should use 60 in number 1. Michelle, who my business partner, who runs my office, Michelle does number 1 and number 528 because that influences the production of serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter for love and happiness. That just kind of putting all these things together. So what our attitude is, and our preaching is that you have to make it with an analogy of flossing your teeth. If you floss your teeth once a week, it's probably not going to do that much benefit. But the goal for flossing teeth and brushing teeth is you do it every day. And so we made a commitment to do our protocols every day. And we do the protocols every day for over 20 years now. And the result is just amazing ability to, instead of watching the kids I went to high school with, watching their cognitive decline.
Mm.
There, you look at someone who was a middle of a packer and has cognitively gone up, and I would just commit to it. And here I am now at 68, and we are rocking it. We haven't peaked. That every day I'm smarter. I understand things better. Things are more clear to me. I can throw up more things and juggle them in my brain without dropping any of them. And I keep thinking, whoa, there's something really to this. They're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out that this is a really big deal. If there's anything else new, the fact that I've been really just going crazy is that this weekend I get to do a 4 hour laser presentation. So it's a remote. It's on the computer. And I'm just going to go through it. And I've just spent 4 hour presentation. I've just spent probably 40 hours putting together a 4 hour talk. And the thing that struck me more than anything else is if you looked at last Thursday's USA Today newspaper front page, there's an article saying we have created the human end game. Creating the human end game is reiterated in these two books. If you've ever read The Coming Plague by Harvard microbiologist Laurie Garrett,
Mm.
150 pages, if you've ever read The Elegant Defense, The Extraordinary New Science of the Immune System, they are claiming that we have killed ourselves and we don't know it. How? Antibiotics.
Mm.
There are so many resistant strains. I mean, just this is one of the things that they quickly point out. This week, they quickly point out that COVID globally in 3 years has killed, rounded but very close, 7 million humans gone. Antibiotic resistance globally kills 5 million every year.
Mm.
So 3 years, COVID knocks out 7 million. Antibiotic resistance is knocking out 5 million every year. And they say it's on a pace that's going up like a space shuttle. And so what you start looking at is what are alternatives to that? I'm telling you with authority, anyone that can do a lead search can figure this out. It's laser lights. And the one that gets the greatest press is got to be the violet. And so just Google, just go to PubMed, antimicrobial blue light. You'll see that most of the waveforms use 405. If you're to the right longer than 400, it's non-mutagenic. But if you go below 400, like ultraviolet and X-rays and gamma rays, there's a downside to it. Yeah, I have these studies where they completely knock out COVID with 222 or 258 nanometers, but they're mutagenic. So you can't use them on people or kids or pets, but you can use a 405. There is no downside and there's only good side. And it's almost zero ability to create microbial resistance. And they also work on bacteria, fungus, parasites, and viruses. While you look at the problems, they say some of the biggest problems they have with antibiotic resistance is that they keep giving antibiotics to people that have viruses. They don't work on viruses, but lasers do, but antibiotics don't. But when you use them inappropriately like that, you just accelerate the evolution of the pathogens. They are so much stronger today as compared to less than 100 years ago when antibiotics became commercially available. I think that in the future, besides the dementia thing and the cognitive enhancement, which I'm really into, we're going to see more and more stuff about microbes. And you and I, we've already talked a little bit about the microbiome and some things that they're finding that you're changing the pathogens without knocking out the beneficial guys. This is really critically important. There's a lot of really good things that are kind of going on. And I think also historically, even as we're looking at, I see the background in the laser light show, and you have all of these red beams going around, that what the people that are hardcore readers, like I think the team teachers at Erchonia and a lot of their researchers back at the home office, they start to realize as great as the red beam is, the red beam is critically important, but there are other beams that are synergistic. And that's the green and that's the violet. And the fact that we now do this thing, we learned it actually from Trevor Barrett. We do this thing called stacking, where everyone has their red. So we put our red and on whatever we're doing. And now we have a stand and we put on our violet green and put it on top of it. And I'm looking at some of the stuff that Michelle sees most of the patients. I see what she's doing clinically, and it's just like, whoa. I mean, stuff that is just flat out miraculous. I mean, like every week, every day almost, these guys. And I'm just thinking the genius of understanding that the key to everything appears to be the mitochondria. The mitochondria are the biological epicenter of aging. One is only as young or as old as their mitochondria is. And there are things that you can do. What's the common link between high intensity interval training, between intermittent fasting, between taking a handful of supplements like acetyl L-carnitine and alpha lipoic acid and your magnesium and laser? They all target the mitochondria. So we do all of these things. We target this, and the fact that lasers will probably increasingly grab the lion's share of physiological benefit from all of those different approaches. So it's really an exciting time. It's stuff I wish I would have known when I started practice 45 years ago. I didn't. But now you get going on these things, and it's literally impossible to practice without a laser. What would you do? You kind of freeze up. You know what to do. I mean, you do your chiropractic and your exercise, your nutrition, all great. But it's like when you have people that are really messed up, like, well, what do you do with someone who's got Parkinson's disease? I mean, what do you do? Why is Michelle? She just stacks them up and does this, and we watch the outcome. What do you do when a parent says, I've got a child who has an in utero stroke? Her official diagnosis is cerebral palsy. She is 3. She doesn't speak and she doesn't move. She's amobile and aphasic. And within 9 days, she's doing both, moving and talking. And you're thinking, okay, what the heck? How come this isn't the front page news? I'm sharing with classes now. In fact, I did in Kristen's class. Some chiropractor from Tennessee writes me an email. Actually, goes, it's always to me and Michelle, mostly Michelle, because I get too many emails. This morning, I looked at it when I was trying to find this link, and I have just under 16,000 emails I'm supposed to process. None of it jumped. Just stuff coming in. But this chiropractor, he's in Tennessee. He writes me a letter. Goes, listen, my dad had a stroke up in Wisconsin, and he says it was really going bad. He was completely gone. They put him in hospice for end of care and for end of life care. And he goes, I drove from Tennessee up to Wisconsin, which was to say my final goodbyes to my father. And I brought my laser with me. And I showed mom how to use it. I showed her the spots where we put it, same spots that we do. And he goes, it was nothing but improvement from that moment on. He goes, he's completely out of the woods. He's home, and the doctors are baffled. That's because all of their education is about pharmacology. And you things that are non-pharmacologically based, even though they are physiologically sound, you hardly hear anything about it because it competes with pharmacology. And pharmacology, if you ever read the book Sickening by John Abramson from Harvard out of last year, he says the whole show is controlled by pharmaceutical companies, including politics. He says they control everything. He says in the book out of Harvard last year that they give every elected politician $450,000 a year, where you can pretty much count on their vote on anything you want to do, including mandating take our drugs or whatever, make our drug the standard of care, and anyone doesn't do it is outside the standard. And yet you read about, I just put another article in my article review service. I got this article review service on statin pharmacology. It is a crime what they're getting away with. If you look at the differences between the relative and the absolute risk, it's an absolute crime. But it becomes the standard of care because of the power of the pharmaceutical purse. And yet there's so many things that are not pharmacologically based that can help people. And so we're just totally into that. And that's kind of the chiropractic profession. I mean, we're kind of the leaders of all of that stuff. So it just seems like a natural amalgamation that chiropractic healthcare providers would get involved in the cutting edge technology of low level laser therapy.
Yeah, for sure.
Go really fast. So.
No, that was amazing. I want to circle back on kind of one idea there, and curious, when you talk about this idea of free floating mitochondria, is there any idea as to the prevalence or the amount? I mean, is there a high percentage, low percentage? What do you know about that?
I don't know very much, to be honest. I mean, I'm looking because I think it's a really good question and a relevant question. But what kind of gets me into it, and it goes back to kind of the stuff you talked about the microtubules and the tensegranous matrix, which are the words that I use. If you look at some of the laser studies, they will take animals and they will injure them bilaterally. So my hands are up. And the injury can be either a cut, scalpel, or a burn, or a crush. And then they take the animals and they randomly divide them into two groups. One group gets nothing. The other group, they lace them. And as expected, it didn't matter the type of injury, the lace group significantly heals better than the controls. And they're thinking, yeah, that makes sense. But this is what caught them off guard. The wounds were inflicted bilaterally. They only laced one arm.
Mm.
Non-laced arm significantly out-healed the controls. So you right away go, okay, what's the depth of penetration? Zero. There was no penetration. There wasn't even laser. How can you explain that? Well, they would explain it saying, well, you're changing the communication through the tensegrous matrix, or you're changing things in the blood or the lymphatics or something, and it kind of goes systemic. Well, now they're starting to realize you are hitting these free-floating mitochondria and changing their ability to do all kinds of stuff. And every time the heart beats, shoo, these guys just scatter around. So no matter where you're putting it, there's a certain percent, and it's probably different on everybody. But whatever it is, something is happening that heals the other side. And I keep thinking this concept of the free floating mitochondria is quite new, but I think very relevant. And therefore, I think the answer to your question is it is probably at the moment unknown.
Yeah.
That doesn't won't be known in the next 5 years, but it's probably unknown right now. But it seems like it's at a physiological quantity that it is relevant in health issues and in laser therapy and everything else you do to help the mitochondria. I mean, your supplements, your intermittent fasting,
Right.
the interval training, all the things that we would kind of do on top of our chiropractic would probably fit into it.
And I would have to think too that if there's an evolutionary connection between the microbiome and bacteria and the mitochondria, there's got to be a similar mechanism of action on the microbiome, right? In terms of that sort of influence and or connection. And that would make total sense if whatever it is, 5 times, 10 times more, not us in terms of, it's funny you said that, because I was at the Oregon coast this weekend visiting my parents, and we were talking about a conversation that our good friend Dr. Isaac Jones had with Dr. Joseph Mercola. They were swimming at the beach some time ago, and they got out, and Isaac went and took a shower and was going to go shower at the beach. They have outside there the showers, and Dr. Mercola's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm showering off." And he says, "No, you're going to rinse off all the good microbes that you've got from the ocean." He's like, "Keep those on you as long as you can." And he's like, "Oh, that kind of makes sense, actually, And so for me, I'm thinking, if there's that evolutionary connection, no doubt that's playing a role. There's got to be some sort of a similar mechanism of action when they talk about the influence on the microbiome there, if there's that mitochondrial connection there.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And that's why, when COVID hit 2020, it didn't take long for studies to start to pop up looking at lasers for COVID. And in my class notes, I have a big section. There's a lot of studies on it. But what I thought was pretty much short-sighted for the authors coming out of San Diego State and Marquette University and stuff, they would advocate putting it on the face to make sure you cover the nose and the mouth, the chest, because it's a respiratory virus, and that would be it. And I'm thinking, whoa, I think that's very short-sighted because immunity is primarily in the gut. And I would say, let's just take the same protocol. So I got COVID. I mean, I don't want COVID, but I got COVID. Now that I got COVID, I want to get better. I don't want to be a long haul, and I don't want to give it to anybody. So I isolate myself. I have my protocols. I did face, I did chest, and I did gut. And, my recovery was absolutely, phenomenal. It was first day I was 4 out of 10. Second day I was 2 out of 10. Third day I was 1 out of 10. Fourth day I was completely normal in every way. I mean, every measure of my illness was gone. I continued to isolate because that was the protocols. You should isolate, make sure you might be still infectious, give it to somebody. But when I took class with Trevor Barry, again, his emphasis, he also emphasizes doing the gut, because not only is the gut, where the microbiome is, the gut is the vagus nerve.
Mm.
And so the vagus nerve goes to the nucleus tractus solitarius, which you can get to with chiropractic adjustments. If you read the studies out of Leeds University by Ian Edwards and colleagues. But if you read Stephen Gundry, he's the guy that wrote the Plant Paradox book, and he's written 3 books since then, that he says the vagus nerve is both motor and sensory. The vagus nerve sensory is 9 to efferent. So afferent is 9, efferent is 1. So the key is afferent, and that is gut. And so doing the gut, you're sending all of this stuff up into the brainstem, specifically to a spot called the nucleus tractus solitarius, which, if you read the writings by Kevin Tracy, he's a neurosurgeon out of New York, if you read the stuff that he says, that's the quarterback for neuroimmunology. And so the fact that you get all of these other really cool loops, if you do the gut, which is targeting the microbiome and the vagus nerve, but there's so much overlap with the free-floating mitochondria and the mitochondria that are in every one of our cells. All of our cells have hundreds, maybe even thousands of copies of mitochondria. Each mitochondria has hundreds of copies of mitochondrial DNA. And then you look at all of the electron transport proteins. There's so much stuff that we are influencing when with our therapeutic applications of light. And now the understanding that you got really 4. You ignored the 5th electron transport protein. You got these 4, and the fact that they now have got it figured out how you can influence these 4 guys, which are the key. These are the guys where the hydrogens go up, and then 5 is where they come back down. So the key is getting them up. And so you got violet, green, red. And so the stacking that we now do is just really, really quite awesome. And so a lot of fun. It's just not just for our patients, but for ourselves, seeing how long we can keep our brains functioning at a very, very high level. I heard President Biden made a joke last week. It was, of course, tape, about how he's now joking about his own dementia. About how
I saw that. I saw that just this morning.
Well, that's pretty interesting. But I keep thinking, that's actually not funny. But number 2, that he's not all that much older than me. And I'm wondering, okay, when I hit 80, will I be like that, or will I be more like I am like this? Or will I be even better? My goal is to be even better. And I think it's just paying the price. You just do the protocols, just follow through, do what you're supposed to do. And that's kind of our practice, our life, and how we coach our patients and my students at the class. I'm faculty at the Chiropractic College. I just was the commencement speaker at the last graduation at Life West. This week, the biggest thing that Life West does every year is the Wave, and it was this week. And so I was the opening speaker at the Wave, and I got to do some really outstandingly awesome stuff. I posted my talk to my webpage. I mean, anyone could go pull it off. It'll only be out there for the month of August. Awesome. But if you pull off the Wave notes, they are grand slam home runs. They're the best thing I've ever done.
Awesome. We'll make sure to post that there.
Oh,
that's amazing. Andrew?
Andrew's been very quiet.
I wanted to circle back.
Yeah, Andrew.
Well, when you're interviewing Dr. Murphy, it's better to be a listener than a speaker, I think. I wanted to loop back to something you said, that laser affects bacteria in it. It only affects, it gets rid of bad bacteria but maintains good bacteria. How does the body differentiate between, killing off bad stuff and keeping good stuff? How does that, I actually had this question from a doctor. She mentioned that she doesn't want to tinker at all with her children's gut health because they've never had antibiotics, and they're in their teens, I think, or early 20s. And so she's like, I don't want to give like a digestive support supplement protocol or like a laser protocol because I don't want to affect what's there in a bad way. How does the laser differentiate, or how does the body differentiate using laser for good or for building up the good and killing off the bad?
Yeah, interesting that question came up to Kristen during our class together a couple weeks ago, and she she started to show these studies. I thought, boy, this is really good. It was probably the reason I was meant to be in her classroom, is that there's a difference between aerobic and anaerobic microbes, and the anaerobic ones are the pathogenic ones, and that those are the ones that are influenced by the laser, while the beneficial ones are not. And it has to do, therefore, with their utilization of oxygen. That what lasers are doing is they're unblocking the flow of the electron transport abilities to use oxygen. And that only is relevant in certain microbes and not in other microbes. That was the explanation that she gave. And I thought, man, that's a pretty good explanation. I liked it a lot. When you put articles on it, because in class I go through maybe a dozen or so, something like that. You just kind of run out of time on what you can do, but they clearly point out that one, they're only knocking out the pathogens. Two, that they are not creating resistance like a laser resistance, and that it is not influencing the beneficial. And so you kind of look at those guys, and Kristen's explanations about aerobic versus anaerobic. I thought that was a pretty good explanation, so I liked it a lot. And I thought, yeah, that's probably as good as explanations I've heard anywhere.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say too, I think it would have to be inherently connected to just the simple fact that our biology is such that we're light-driven beings, evolutionarily speaking, right? That sunlight itself carries with it all these specific wavelengths that positively influence the body, the microbiome, and or killing off certain things. And so no doubt we've evolved to respond appropriately to light itself, right? It's so inherently fundamental, as opposed to, antibiotics are a relatively new intervention, and so no doubt it's not necessarily a natural thing. That's my guess too.
Exactly, and again, you evolutionary biology talking about human evolution and about if you ever read that book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker in
Mm,
2017 at UC Berkeley, he talks about that you should be careful even with light, and his negativity is blue backlit devices
mm,
after dusk can have some negative influences because of the way that we evolved with a special sensitivity to blue because of the blueness of the sky and the blueness of the water,
mm,
and how the blue then drives the supercharismatic nucleus production of chemistry that goes to the pineal gland and the production of melatonin. If there's anything that has come out in a positive way in the COVID thing, is that the value of melatonin to inhibit the adverseness of the cytokine storm of COVID-19. And so our protocols have evolved to the point that we no longer use the violet after dusk. We use it during the day, and that's kind of a pitch that we learned from Matthew Walker's book. But it's all just like you said. It's all this evolutionary biological stuff, and so there's quite a bit written on that too. So we kind of integrate that into our clinical approaches as well, and all of the different waveforms that are in the sun, that comes from the sun. And I think if anyone knows this more than anyone else, I would credit Joe Mercola. I
mm.
met Mercola a couple times. I shook his hand. I got his business card. I've emailed him once or twice, but he talks a lot about the value of sun other than vitamin D.
Mm.
That there's so much other things that you can get with the exposures to all of the waveforms. As clinicians, therapeutically, though, we can isolate the waveform and concentrate them. That's what laser is. It is monochromatic and coherent. And then you realize that the key to everything is, again, the mitochondria and the electron transport chain, and the fact that there's only four molecules and you can target them with violet, green, and red. And it just seems like that's the catch me up, because you get into the sun, you have infrared and as well. And there are some increasing issues that I see in the literature on infrared, and some of the things that it can do. And then you look at some of the man-made waveforms, that are part of your 4G and your 5Gs and your microwave and your radar in your driverless vehicle and stuff like that. All of these things have biological applications that are often deleterious.
Mm.
And we kind of become aware of those things, and we keep coming back to the same central theme. It seems that the waveforms that tend to be most relevant for health are those that are within the visible spectrum.
Yeah.
So we're staying in the visible spectrum and being cautious with things outside the visible spectrum. I do look at the value of infrared, but increasingly I'm seeing studies saying that near infrared is superior to far infrared, because far infrared can open the voltage gated calcium ion channel. Calcium can rush in, create free radicals, and accelerate the demise of the cell. And when it dies, it's called excitotoxicity.
Yeah.
If you ever read the book by Russell Blaylock called Excitotoxins, the Taste It Kills, he does it from a dietary perspective. But increasingly, if you read that guy, Martin Pall, and I think I grabbed Paul there, if you read this guy, man, he is the guy. I just put yet another brand new
Explaining
article,
unexplained illnesses.
yeah, explaining unexplained illnesses by an emeritus professor of biology from Washington State University. His name is Martin Pall. I just put together in my laser class a new study by this guy on Alzheimer's, and his pitch and he's very cautious about when you do things that over release nitric oxide, because too much laser can over release nitric oxide, that the nitric oxide will couple up with the superoxide free radical, making a molecule called peroxynitrate. He says almost all of these crazy illnesses that are afflicting society are linked to peroxynitrate. And I got, like I say, a brand new study on this. He goes over 18 different explanations on the drivers of Alzheimer's as being related to the electromagnetic field, but it's all longer wavelengths,
Mm.
ones that are artificially made here on planet Earth, mostly for technology. And if you ever want to have an interesting moment, just Google Havana, Cuba,
Mm.
Havana syndrome. Just Google that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Going on, and I'm telling you, increasingly I'm seeing things that are saying this appears to be espionage, and it's espionage to try to steal data, but their targeting is not that precise.
Mm.
And anyone within a certain radius of the data that they're trying to lift stuff off of, they get exposed to these pulsed electromagnetic fields, and it's giving the person being exposed all of the signs and symptoms of a traumatic brain injury without the trauma.
Hmm.
What is the difference? What is the commonality? Both traumatic brain injury and these devices have the ability to open the voltage gated calcium ion channel. If you read Stephanie Seneff's book from 2021 on glyphosate, she makes a compelling argument that all of our food that is glyphosated up, was about all of it these days, that glyphosate is a chelator of magnesium. The magnesium is in the soil, so if you eat the crop that came from that land, you don't get magnesium. If you feed a crop to animal, eat animal, you similarly don't get the magnesium. And the result is the protector against the adverseness of the opening of the voltage gated calcium ion channel, the calcium influx, is magnesium, because it plugs up the channel, and we're all magnesium deficient. If you read that article by Bruce Ames, who's now like 94 years of age, a longevity guy who's actually, old, because you get a lot of longevity experts and they're young, like David Sinclair and Walter Young.
Right, right, right.
They're in their 50s. He says in his article from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in October of 2018, that the number one mineral deficiency in the human experience now is magnesium. And then you read all the magnesium experts like Carolyn Dean and Mildred Seelig and Morley Robbins. They all say the same stuff, says our magnesium is way low, which gives us a vulnerability to the adversities of these electromagnetic fields because we open the voltage gated calcium ion channel and we don't have the magnesium to protect us. If you read the great epigenetic methylator Amy Yasko in her book, in her second book, she says essentially glutamate is the gun, calcium is the bullet that kills the neurons, and the bulletproof vest would be magnesium. So we have more guns, we have more bullets, we have less bulletproof vests. This is a disaster. What we want to do is to avoid the guns, avoid the bullets, get more bulletproof vests. So we do the nutrition thing. We say, hey, innate biology requires magnesium for these reasons, and we try to protect. Plus, the lasers work because they up the adenosine triphosphate. But if you read all the hardcore, just go all the way back to 2002, read Mildred Seelig. The energy in adenosine triphosphate is not accessible if you're a magnesium deficient, and you are. So you've got to get that magnesium. So you get hardcore world leaders on magnesium like Morley Robbins. I've had dinner with, I don't know, maybe 12 times. I like him. I think he's the smartest guy I know. He's adamant that no one calls it ATP unless you're kind of a rookie. He says it's called magnesium ATP, MG ATP, MG-ATP, because without magnesium, you can't get the energy out of the last phosphate to phosphate bond. So we dovetail that and we ramp up the energy with our lasers and our exercise and our diets and all these different things. But we got to make sure that they have the magnesium. And they all kind of give you the same number. The only test that matters is red blood cell magnesium levels, and it needs to be 6.5 milligrams per deciliter. And so that we do those tests and just kind of check it out on people, and you realize people are really magnesium deficient. And that they pretty much say, yeah, everyone's got to get the magnesium to a certain level so that everything sort of balances out. So whatever, just.
I first want to point out that you referred to lasers as the cat's meow. I think that's a first on this show, which I think is amazing.
I'm just on autopilot. I don't even remember what
I thought that was awesome. Man, this is, I think I seem to recall the last time we're going to have like quite the bibliography in the notes of books. You've given us at least 6 or 7, if not more, really, really good references in terms of books to check out. And so I know that we're going to be, I'm seeing Andrew here taking notes on all those. So this will be really, really good. I'm excited because I think those books will, yeah, there you go.
Those are the ones, they're up on top and below that I just kind of pulled out that I thought, depending on where talk goes, that we might talk about. Yeah, I am a bookworm. I like reading books. It's kind of like my fun. And I was here pretty late last night. I was here about 9:00 in the office, and then it's pretty early here at 6 a.m. is when we started this.
Yeah.
So just that all of these books, because each of these books in and of themselves is another story that could go 30 minutes, and they're all
Sure.
and I probably just floated a handful at you that I think are pretty fun. I think this one is exceptionally boring. It's really you read it, go whoa, but it's kind of boring. The hardest book I've ever read is The Coming Plague by Laurie Garrett. You read this, you think, oh my gosh. A lot easier to read An Elegant Defense, but there's so many other really cool things. My favorite thing is just talking cancer and the relationship between the electron transportation and cancer. That is to me the most awesome thing ever. And the 2 books that I just really are taking off on it are these guys. You have Sam Apple's book on Otto Warburg. You read this guy.
Ravenous, is that the name?
Yeah, Ravenous by Sam Apple. And if you read this one, I think I learned more about how lasers work reading a book on a chemical called methylene blue.
The Ultimate Guide to
Both
Methylene
of these guys came out in 2021, and I kind of look at these guys and I'm thinking, whoa. But they are centering around the cancer thing, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with that? Only in that my mom, when she was 44 and diagnosed with cancer, she primarily did the work of Otto Warburg. And her providers told her that she would not see her 45th birthday, and yet she lived 26 years. Died of cancer. So she did whatever they did not cure her, but it prolonged her life. And just kind of understanding how to do that and the physiology, like this book, Ravenous, Otto Warburg, The Nazis and the Search for the Cancer Diet Connection. It's all the mitochondria. He discovered the mitochondria. He discovered cytochrome C. The cytochrome C oxidase, that's his discovery. Complex 4. And he's the one that started to take the lights from Albert Einstein, because they're Germans in Germany at the same time. Nobel. He gets the 1931 Nobel Prize. She got the 1926 Nobel Prize. Einstein got the 1921 Nobel Prize. But Einstein is a theoretical physicist, not a biologist. So the person that took what Einstein's doing and started to make biological applications was this guy, Otto Warburg. So you read this and you see how then that gets mentioned in this guy's book. And then the coolest book I've ever read, really difficult, is Transformer by Nick Lane. You read this and you look at his section on Otto Warburg and the electron transport chain and how you can move the electrons. You start putting all this together and you realize, whoa, this is exciting times. And we're on the cutting edge of something that's really, really great. It's really an exciting time to kind of be involved in all of this. You're just sad as you get old, like me, 68 now, that you don't have another 68 years, because it just seems so exciting, that, and what will it mean for your kids? I mean, both my kids have their own lasers. And neither are chiropractors. One crunches numbers for Warren Buffett and the other's a kindergarten teacher. So you're thinking, whoa.
That's amazing. Well, Dr. Murphy, we certainly appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here with us. I think we've gotten a ton of really, really valuable and exciting insights in terms of a lot of the cutting edge stuff. What have you got coming up future-wise in terms of talks, seminars? Where will you be for docs to connect with you?
Well, I if you go to the webpage, danmurphydc.com, there's a schedule there. I literally work every weekend. That's not an exaggeration. 50 classes a year. The most I've ever done is 64. This weekend coming up, it's remote. So I'm doing a class remote. It's a class on laser, and I just updated the notes. That's why I was here till 9:00 last night, because I gotta see the bodies and whatever, and then put together stuff after that. So I stayed really late, got it together. It is really good. Maybe the best stuff I've ever put together. I'm going to amalgamate the 2021 Nobel Prize and some of the changes, and you see how these changes are all centered around the mitochondria. And it's some of the greatest stuff I think I've ever put together. And because of my background, I'm able to see it and figure out how it all fits in. And so I'll be doing that starting this weekend. And then I'm all over. I'm doing I'm every weekend I'm somewhere. Sometimes I'm by myself. Sometimes I'm with other people. I do a lot of conventions. So I'm all over. If anybody ever wants to know, just look at my webpage. And then, of course, I have the article review thing. The article that'll go up this week is another brand new article on how, if you've been thinking that Tylenol is okay for your kids, you have been gamed. You have been misled. It is not true. In fact, it is worse than not true. It is a bold-faced lie. You look at the studies on this. I just finished a big review of an article on that, and it's being proofed right now. My youngest daughter proofs it. When people see these things, plus I'm going to show them two brand new studies on strokes and how they're not related to adjustments. Two brand new studies came out in 2023, and I found another study that if you can predict the weather because your joints get stiff or tight or whatever, you're sensitive to barometric weather changes, how that is indicative that you have scar tissue in so that we would target those areas and break them down. One of the greatest things with lasers is its ability to help degrade scar tissue, and that is the study that came out of the University of Illinois in 2016 on kidney fibrosis. I mean, really awesome stuff. By the way, in that study, they used green, violet, and red lasers, all of them interestingly made by Erchonia.
That's
pretty
awesome.
interesting.
That's amazing. Very cool.
But I just started taking off again.
No. It's great. No, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll make sure that we have links in the notes to everything so that docs can connect with that. So thank you for sharing that. Andrew, any final thoughts?
My final thought was, it's been too long since we've had you on the show. We had you early on when we first launched the podcast, and I'm realizing now, like, what a mistake we made not having you on more times, because I know, number one, you're a crowd favorite, and Chad and I very much hold you out as like you're one of our kind of icons, and so we didn't want to overuse Dr. Dan Murphy, but we would love to have you on again more often.
For sure.
Well, yeah, and you say, hey, you keep taking time out of my day. I didn't take any time out of my day. I'm doing this at 6 a.m. so that it's the only time I have. When my day starts, my day's solid. And so I gotta get, yesterday was college day. We start college, it's 5 hours straight through, and then patients, and then putting together notes and stuff. So when I do these things this early, it's because it does not interfere with my day. That's what I can do. And so I'm happy to do it.
Well, that's awesome. And we appreciate you getting up early for it then. That's what we'll say. So thank you so much. So it's been a pleasure. And yeah, for sure, let's make sure that this is not the last interview. We'll get you back on again, hopefully real soon. So we hope that this has been valuable for everybody listening and or watching. We certainly appreciate Dr. Murphy. And hopefully this has been eye-opening for you and exciting to kind of start scratching a little bit more at the surface of what the future holds in terms of low-level laser therapy and some of the amazing things that that we're starting to discover. So if you found this valuable and interesting, be sure to share this with others. And we'll talk to you guys on the next episode. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to the Laser Light Show. Be sure to subscribe and give us a review. If you're interested in learning more about Erchonia lasers, just head on over to Erchonia.com. There you'll find a ton of useful resources, including research, news, and links to upcoming live events, as well as Erchonia's e-community, where you can access for free additional resources, including advanced training and business tools. Again, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.